I want to say a few words about my father and why I believe this weekend is so important. But don't worry, unlike Lionel, I won't go on all night long.
Behind the palace gates, a quiet storm has erupted, one that could redefine the royal family forever. Prince William has made a bold move. Was it a calculated act to protect the crown, or a deeply personal statement rooted in the past?
As my grandmother said when she was crowned, coronations are a declaration of our hopes for the future.
As tensions rise and loyalties are tested, the monarchy faces a turning point. What really happened behind closed doors? And what does it mean for the future of the throne? This is the story they never meant for the public to see. When the news first came to light, it didn't arrive with a grand announcement or official press release. Instead, it spread quietly, almost like a whisper moving through the palace halls, until it wasn't quiet anymore. The decision, initially meant to stay behind closed doors, has now stirred one of the most significant internal shifts the royal family has seen in years. And while some call it a long overdue correction, others are calling it a deeply personal betrayal. Reports from palace insiders suggest that Prince William has formally moved to withdraw a range of royal privileges previously extended to Queen Camilla's children and grandchildren. These privileges, while unofficial in the eyes of the British Constitution, had allowed Camilla's family access to ceremonial roles, royal events, and informal status within the institution. In practice, they were treated with a level of inclusion normally reserved for those born into the monarchy. This change has reportedly caused serious shockwaves within the royal household, not least because of the way it was handled. According to individuals familiar with the situation, Camilla was not given any personal heads up about the decision. There were no conversations to prepare her, no quiet discussions to ease the blow. Instead, she found out through a formal briefing by a senior aide, just another point on the palace's internal agenda. The response, as described by palace staff, was immediate and intense. Camilla, who had long worked to integrate her family into royal life without overstepping, allegedly broke into tears and raised her voice at staff. According to one account, she was heard saying, "After everything I've sacrificed and given, he repays me by deleting my family." Insiders say the Queen Consort was especially hurt by the timing and tone of the directive. With King Charles facing increasing health issues and William gradually taking on more public responsibility, this move appeared to be less about logistics and more about setting the tone for what comes next. Some royal observers have described the decision as an early sign of what Prince William's reign could look like, a monarchy that's more streamlined, more rule-bound, and less influenced by personal relationships. The core of the issue seems to lie in how Camilla's family had quietly built a place within the institution over the years. Her children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, and her grandchildren, while never in the line of succession, were gradually included in royal life. They appeared at high-profile events, received invitations to private royal functions, and in some cases, were given ceremonial roles, such as serving as pages at King Charles's coronation. All of this had gone relatively unchallenged publicly, though some insiders claim it had long been a point of tension behind the scenes, especially for Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales. A senior source reportedly said that both William and Kate had concerns that the monarchy was becoming too diluted and that ceremonial roles were being handed out based more on personal proximity than lineage or duty. That's the framework within which William's decision is now being understood. In his view, it's not about animosity. It's about redefining the institution's core values. The monarchy, as he sees it, must draw a clear line between those who are born into the royal family and those who are connected by marriage. And while Camilla is recognized as Queen Consort, her children and grandchildren, by constitutional standards, remain private citizens. For Camilla, though, the impact goes far beyond protocol. According to people close to her, she views this change as a direct attack, not just on her family, but on her legacy. Having spent years rebuilding her public image and gaining acceptance after years of criticism, She believed she had finally secured not just her own place, but a future for her family within the royal orbit. The removal of that informal standing feels to her like a public rejection. Her emotional response reportedly lasted for hours. Staff described her as inconsolable, canceling meetings, refusing meals, and walking in circles, repeating the words, "He's trying to erase me." Some sources believe that Camilla's reaction is tied not only to the suddenness of the decision, but also to what she sees as the underlying motivation behind it, namely, that it was influenced by unresolved feelings surrounding Princess Diana. Camilla is said to have told a close friend that this was Diana's revenge being carried out through William, suggesting that the decision had less to do with royal policy and more to do with personal history. Whether that's accurate or not is impossible to verify, but the fact that such a thought is circulating among those close to the Queen Consort points to how deeply personal this move feels for her. One of the more striking claims to emerge from these reports is that Camilla believes the Princess of Wales supported the decision, or at the very least did not oppose it. According to palace staff, Camilla has since avoided eye contact with Kate during joint public appearances, a sharp contrast to the generally cordial relationship they appeared to maintain in the past. Even King Charles has reportedly been affected by the fallout. While the monarch has often tried to maintain peace between his family members, sources say he was visibly unsettled by his wife's reaction. One side claimed to have overheard Camilla shouting at Charles in private, accusing him of standing by while his son erased her family. Charles, already under pressure due to his health and public responsibilities, is said to be emotionally drained by the situation and unsure how to proceed without alienating either his wife or his heir. At the heart of the matter is a tension that has long simmered beneath the surface. The balance between tradition and modernity, between bloodline and blended families, and between duty and personal ties. Camilla believed that the monarchy had evolved to include her family, not just symbolically, but in practice. William, on the other hand, appears to believe that too much flexibility risks weakening the very foundation the monarchy is built on. For years, Queen Camilla's journey through the royal ranks has been defined by a mix of subtlety, patience, and timing. From her early days as a controversial figure to eventually becoming Queen Consort, she navigated one of the most scrutinized personal transformations in British public life. But what's less often discussed is the way her family, particularly her children and grandchildren, quietly began to appear within royal circles, not as official members of the monarchy, but as close and increasingly present participants in royal life. Camilla never pushed publicly for their inclusion. She didn't call press conferences or demand formal recognition. Instead, she opted for what many inside the palace describe as a quiet, deliberate strategy. Over time, her family became part of the royal landscape, blending into the background of formal events and family milestones. It wasn't forced or fast. In fact, it was so gradual that many didn't even notice it happening until it had already become the norm. Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, Camilla's two children from her previous marriage to Andrew Parker Bowles, were initially almost invisible to the public eye. They led private lives, kept largely out of the media, and didn't play any formal role in the monarchy after Camilla married Prince Charles in 2005. But things started to shift during the 2010s, particularly as public sentiment towards Camilla softened and her image began to stabilize. Small changes began to appear. Tom and Laura were seen attending private events at royal residences. They appeared more frequently in photographs at family gatherings, and sometimes were mentioned in passing by royal aides or commentators. These weren't official positions or announcements, but they signaled a subtle shift in their role. They were no longer just private citizens with a royal relative. They were becoming part of the royal family's unofficial inner circle. According to insiders, the changes were strategic. Royal staff were quietly instructed to include the Parker Bowles family in certain ceremonial scripts and guest lists. While no titles were ever granted, the family was often seated in prominent positions at state events, close to or among working royals. Some courtiers reportedly began referring to them as the Queen's family, a term that, while informal, carried weight within the palace. The inclusion extended beyond her children. Camilla's 5 grandchildren, all unrelated to the monarchy by blood, also began to make appearances. They were present at garden parties, joined holiday gatherings, and over time, were photographed participating in major public occasions. All of this unfolded without official announcement or constitutional change. It was, as one former royal aide put it, a slow redefinition of who belongs and who doesn't, based more on family loyalty than royal blood. Camilla's most notable move came during King Charles III's coronation, when 3 of her grandsons, Gus and Louis Lopes and Freddie Parker Bowles, were selected to serve as pages of honor. These are ceremonial roles traditionally reserved for children of dukes or royal bloodlines, and the decision sparked internal debate within the palace. While it was presented as a gesture of modern family inclusiveness, some insiders saw it as a bold statement, one that suggested Camilla's family had finally arrived as part of the royal narrative. Sources say this choice did not sit well with everyone, particularly Prince William and Princess Kate. Although they did not publicly comment, aides close to the couple noted their concern about what they viewed as a blurring of lines. To them, ceremonial roles within the monarchy should be reserved for those with a direct constitutional link to the crown. For William and Kate, the monarchy isn't just a family. It's an institution with a defined purpose, and allowing unofficial members to take on symbolic duties could weaken that structure. Those concerns reportedly grew more urgent in the months following the coronation. Camilla, feeling emboldened by the moment, began advocating behind the scenes for her grandchildren to receive additional ceremonial recognition. While she never pushed for titles or succession rights, she did express a desire for her family to be more formally recognized, perhaps through honorary mentions or continued ceremonial involvement. Public relations staff were reportedly encouraged to include Camilla's grandchildren in press briefings, and royal photographers were asked to take more images of them at events. According to palace staff, the intention was to make their presence seem natural and consistent, reinforcing the image of a blended modern royal family. But not everyone agreed this was the right direction. There were quiet jokes within the palace, some lighthearted, others more pointed, that the monarchy was slowly turning into 2 parallel lines, the Windsors by blood and the Parker Bowles by association. These whispers, while not official policy, reflected a growing unease within certain parts of the institution. The monarchy had always been rooted in heritage, lineage, and structure. This new dynamic, while more inclusive in spirit, risked confusing those boundaries. The discomfort reportedly reached a peak when Camilla allegedly began exploring options for official residences to be granted to her family. While it's unclear how far those discussions went, insiders say the idea of allocating royal estates or grace and favor homes to the Parker Bowles family caused a stir. It signaled, in the eyes of some senior royals, that Camilla was seeking to make her family a permanent part of the royal establishment, not just informally, but structurally. This, according to multiple sources, is where William drew the line. For him, the monarchy is not a social club or a blended family. It's a constitutional framework that requires discipline, clarity, and consistency. He reportedly viewed Camilla's efforts not as malicious, but as misplaced. A royal aide summarized his thinking this way: "It wasn't about resentment, it was about responsibility." Princess Kate is said to have shared that view. Like William, she comes from outside the aristocracy and understands what it means to earn a place within the royal system. But she also sees the value of maintaining clear roles and boundaries, especially in a time when the monarchy is under more scrutiny than ever. To the couple, every public appearance and ceremonial role sends a message, and the inclusion of Camilla's family risked sending the wrong one. Even so, Camilla didn't stop. People close to her say she continued to hope for a more inclusive model, one that acknowledged her family's support and stability during a turbulent era for the royal household. From her perspective, she had endured decades of public judgment, worked to rehabilitate her image, and stood by Charles through personal and political storms. She believed that her family, by extension, had earned a place at the table, even if only symbolically. But what one person sees as recognition, another may see as overreach. And over time, those behind-the-scenes disagreements began to escalate. It wasn't dramatic, and there were no loud public confrontations. But the internal conversations within the palace grew more serious, and the divide between William's vision of a traditional, streamlined monarchy and Camilla's hope for broader inclusion became harder to ignore. For years, Prince William remained publicly respectful and privately observant. He watched as the institution evolved, adapted, and at times blurred its traditional lines. Behind the scenes, however, he harbored concerns that the royal family had become too sprawling, too sentimental, and too loosely defined. Those who know him well say his vision is not driven by ego, but by a sense of purpose. In his mind, the monarchy must protect itself from the gradual erosion that can come from confusion, favoritism, and the mixing of public duty with private preference. Those close to William often cite the influence of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth II in shaping this perspective. Both believed in a lean, focused monarchy that placed duty above all else. During their reigns, the royal family was kept relatively small in its official capacity, with clearly defined roles and limited ceremonial participation from extended relatives. William appears to be drawing from that same playbook, but with a modern edge, one that recognizes today's heightened public scrutiny, financial accountability, and social media-driven perception. His plan is not about casting people out in anger. It's about creating a monarchy that is easier to understand and harder to criticize. He reportedly believes that too many extended family members participating in ceremonial roles confuses the public and opens the institution up to unnecessary backlash. From his point of view, every person who stands on a palace balcony or sits in the front row at a state event should be there because they serve a constitutional function, not simply because they're related by marriage. This belief helps explain why William was so firm in his decision to remove honorary roles and ceremonial privileges from Queen Camilla's children and grandchildren. It wasn't a reaction to one event, but part of a broader plan that's been quietly developing for years. Insiders say the idea of a reset didn't happen overnight. It was the result of ongoing discussions, careful observations, and a growing need to define who the monarchy represents in a modern age. The first visible signs of this shift came through internal changes. William reportedly authorized revisions to ceremonial rosters, prioritizing blood relatives and those in direct service of the crown. Guest lists were updated, public duties redistributed, and royal communications tightened. These weren't headline-grabbing moves, but within the palace, they signaled a quiet transformation. Individuals who had once been included out of courtesy were gradually removed from official documents and event plans. Public-facing changes followed. Royal events began to spotlight a smaller, more focused group of working royals, mainly those in the direct line of succession and their immediate families. Camilla's family, once seen at major ceremonies like the coronation, became noticeably absent. There were no official announcements, but the message was unmistakable. Only those born into the royal bloodline would represent the crown going forward. Some saw this as harsh. Others called it overdue. For William, though, it was a matter of principle. According to one advisor, he told staff, "The monarchy can't afford confusion. The public must know who serves and who simply stands beside." That line, "who serves and who stands beside," has reportedly become a guiding principle in his approach to royal reform. It's a clean line, and in William's view, a necessary one. This approach also reflects growing public attitudes. Polling data over the past decade has shown a slow but steady shift in how Britons view the monarchy. There's a clear desire for transparency, accountability, and relevance. At a time when many institutions are being challenged, the royal family has to justify its role in a very different way than it did even 20 years ago. Extravagance, perceived favoritism, and unnecessary spending on extended relatives can trigger public frustration. William seems to understand this and is making changes before those frustrations turn into deeper resentment. Part of his strategy is also financial. While not discussed openly, royal sources say that reducing the number of individuals who receive state support or participate in official engagements also means a smaller financial footprint. In William's mind, a slimmed-down monarchy is not just more functional, it's more defensible. In the age of taxpayer accountability, every role needs to be justified, and every appearance needs to serve a purpose. Camilla's family, though never officially supported by the taxpayer, had nonetheless become part of the royal stage. William reportedly felt that this could no longer continue without blurring important lines. Even if their presence was largely symbolic, symbolism matters in monarchy. It shapes perception, reinforces tradition, and signals who belongs. And for William, belonging must be tied to lineage and constitutional duty, not personal relationships. The decision to act came gradually, but when it did, it was thorough. Not only were ceremonial roles revoked, but royal aides were instructed to update protocols across departments. Security levels were reviewed, press access was limited. Mentions of Camilla's family were scaled back in public communications. Even the official royal website was updated, removing references to her family outside of biographical sections. To observers inside the palace, this wasn't a small adjustment. It was a major shift. It marked the beginning of a new phase, one in which tradition was not just respected but restored. There was no press release, no confrontation, and no fanfare. Just a clear, firm directive that quietly changed the landscape of royal inclusion. Of course, such a move was bound to have personal consequences. Queen Camilla reportedly took the decision hard, viewing it as a personal blow rather than a constitutional adjustment. But those close to William insist that the move wasn't personal, it was structural. His goal, they say, is not to wound individuals, but to protect the monarchy from slowly becoming something it was never intended to be. This philosophy extends beyond Camilla's family. Insiders say William has expressed similar views about the roles of other extended royals as well. He is said to favor a future in which only a handful of individuals, the monarch, their spouse, their children, and perhaps a few senior working royals, carry out public duties. It's a model that echoes the approaches seen in other European monarchies, like those in Sweden and the Netherlands, which have already taken steps to streamline their royal families. When Queen Camilla was informed of the final decision, the atmosphere inside Clarence House reportedly changed immediately. According to staff present that day, what followed was one of the most emotionally charged episodes they had ever witnessed. Camilla, upon reading a formal update outlining the withdrawal of ceremonial access for her children and grandchildren, reacted with what insiders described as disbelief, heartbreak, and fury. There had been no private conversation with Prince William beforehand, no effort to cushion the news or offer a personal explanation. It came to her like any other update, a briefing by a senior aide, listing changes to event protocols and ceremonial rosters. This method of communication was viewed by Camilla as not only cold, but humiliating. According to one long-serving staff member, she broke down in tears almost immediately, shouting through sobs, "How dare he do this to me?" The Queen Consort's reaction wasn't just emotional, it was visceral. Those who witnessed the aftermath described a complete collapse of her usual composure. She canceled upcoming engagements, refused food, and spent hours pacing, crying, and repeating that William was trying to erase her and her family. Her personal staff cleared her schedule, with some even saying she was nearly unreachable for the better part of the day. Those close to Camilla believed the pain went deeper than policy. She reportedly told friends and advisors that she believed the decision had less to do with royal structure and more to do with history, particularly the history involving the late Princess Diana. In private, Camilla is said to have referred to the move as Diana's revenge, suggesting that William was acting not just as a royal heir, but as Diana's son, unable or unwilling to let go of the past. One particularly sharp claim emerged from conversations within Clarence House, that Camilla believed Catherine, Princess of Wales, played a quiet but powerful role in the outcome. Though Kate has remained publicly neutral and continues to fulfill her royal duties with grace, Camilla reportedly sees her as complicit in the decision, supportive of a stricter monarchy that no longer includes the Parker Bowles family. According to palace insiders, during a recent public engagement, Camilla deliberately avoided making eye contact with Kate. Their relationship, once described as polite if not warm, has now grown distant and tense. Even King Charles, who has long tried to act as a bridge between his wife and his son, appears to have been caught off guard by the emotional fallout. According to staff, Camilla confronted him behind closed doors, demanding to know why he didn't step in or push back. One side claimed to have overheard her shouting at the king, saying, "Your son has humiliated me in front of the entire country, and you're going to let him get away with it?" Charles, already facing ongoing health challenges and mounting public responsibilities, is said to be under immense pressure. Friends and advisors say he appears emotionally exhausted and deeply conflicted. On one hand, he is loyal to his wife and understands her years of effort to stabilize the monarchy alongside him. On the other, he recognizes that William's growing authority is not just symbolic, it reflects the reality of a changing monarchy, one increasingly defined by its future rather than its past. Some palace insiders have suggested that the king's silence, his failure to publicly or privately challenge William's move, may have hurt Camilla even more than the decision itself. In her eyes, Charles's reluctance to speak up may be interpreted as tacit approval. One source described her feelings simply. She expected him to defend her family, but deep down, she knows his silence means he won't. That silence, however, is not without its own meaning. Those within the palace say it's becoming clearer by the day that Charles is preparing to gradually hand over more influence to William. With his health a concern and public expectations changing, he may see William's vision as the best long-term path for the institution, even if it comes at a personal cost. The consequences have extended far beyond immediate emotions. Camilla, once a steady and reliable presence in royal strategy meetings, has reportedly withdrawn from several key planning sessions. She's postponed formal correspondence and reduced her engagement with the Privy Council. There's a growing sense that she no longer sees her place in the monarchy as secure, or perhaps even respected. At the same time, William's influence is growing. Within the palace machinery, his decisions are being carried out with increasing speed and minimal resistance. The removal of the Parker Bowles family's ceremonial presence wasn't just a one-time change, it marked the beginning of a wider recalibration. Invitations for upcoming royal events, including next year's Trooping the Color and Garter Day, now reportedly include only Windsor blood relatives and senior working royals. Camilla's family is no longer listed. Even online, the shift is noticeable. Royal watchers have pointed out that references to Camilla's children and grandchildren have quietly disappeared from the royal family's official website. Their names, once included in event summaries or background materials, are now relegated to historical bios or omitted entirely. For those within the royal household, this digital erasure is significant. It suggests that the change is not just administrative, it's structural and lasting. Those close to Camilla say she's now considering how to shape her own legacy independently of the Windsor family. There have been quiet conversations with former advisors and media figures about how she might be remembered, not just as queen consort, but as an individual who supported the monarchy during one of its most turbulent periods. "If they won't remember us kindly," she reportedly told one confidant, "they'll remember that we didn't go quietly." Still, others inside the palace see William's actions as a necessary course correction. They argue that the monarchy had drifted too far into sentimentality, offering ceremonial roles to relatives and in-laws without constitutional justification. One senior aide described it bluntly. "It's not about who deserves to be there, it's about who needs to be there for the institution to survive." That viewpoint is gaining traction. Royal historians and commentators note that William's approach mirrors those adopted by several modern European royal families, which have streamlined their public faces in response to changing times. There's a belief that the public expects more clarity, less excess, and stronger boundaries between private life and public duty. William, by acting now, may be protecting the crown from future crises. But there's no denying the emotional toll. The royal family, like any other, is still a family. Decisions about protocol and tradition inevitably affect personal relationships. What sets the royal household apart is that these decisions also play out under public scrutiny, often without the emotional space or privacy needed to heal. For King Charles, The path forward is difficult. He must navigate between two people he loves and depends on, his wife and his son, while also upholding the integrity of the monarchy he inherited. Palisades say he's trying to stay above the fray, remaining silent and neutral. But within royal circles, silence rarely means indifference. It usually means a decision is being delayed, not avoided. Sooner or later, Charles may have to speak or act. Whether that means reintroducing Camilla's family in a minor ceremonial capacity or continuing to let William's changes stand without contest remains to be seen. But one thing is already certain: the monarchy has changed. The gates that once slowly opened to Camilla's family have now closed, and with them, a chapter of royal history is ending. William's message is clear. The future monarchy will be smaller, sharper, and more focused on bloodline and duty. It may feel colder to some, but in his view, it is the only way forward. The era of soft boundaries and quiet exceptions is over. In its place stands a new vision, one defined not by emotion, but by conviction.